For many years, the waters off the coast of Somalia were some of the most dangerous in the world. This region, especially the Gulf of Aden, became a global hotspot for maritime piracy. The reasons for this were, honestly, pretty complex. Somalia had been without a stable central government for decades, leading to widespread lawlessness and poverty. Many young men, often former fishermen, saw few other opportunities to make a living. They turned to piracy, seeing it as a lucrative if risky profession. The Gulf of Aden is a critical shipping lane, connecting Europe to Asia. Thousands of commercial vessels, from massive oil tankers to container ships, pass through this narrow channel every year, making them easy targets. These pirate gangs were not simple opportunists with small boats. They became increasingly organized and sophisticated. They used motherships, larger vessels that could travel far out into the ocean, to launch smaller, faster skiffs for attacks. They were armed with automatic weapons like AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades, or RPGs. Their business model was simple but effective. Media group, pirates boarding commercial vessel, hostage crew surrounded by armed pirates at stock at distribute _equally. Capture a ship and its crew, hold them for ransom, and negotiate a multi-million-dollar payment from the shipping company or its insurer. This created a cycle of violence and high-stakes negotiation that paralyzed international trade and cost the global economy billions of dollars annually, making the region notorious. The international community could not ignore this growing threat. In response, a coalition of navies from around the world began patrolling the area. Task forces were established, such as the Combined Task Force 151, to deter and disrupt pirate activities. These naval forces provided escorts for vulnerable ships, conducted surveillance, and responded to distress calls. Their presence made the pirates' work more difficult, but the vastness of the ocean meant that it was impossible to protect every single vessel. The pirates continued to operate, often becoming more daring and desperate in their attempts to secure a prize, setting the stage for inevitable and often violent confrontations with military warships. It was in this tense and dangerous environment that the line between a merchant vessel and a warship could sometimes blur, especially from a distance or in the dark. The pirates relied on speed and surprise, often approaching their targets under the cover of night or in the early hours of the morning. They would look for ships that appeared slow-moving, with low sides that were easy to board. A successful hijacking depended on overwhelming the crew before they could mount a defense or call for help. This strategy had worked countless times with commercial ships, but it carried an enormous risk if the pirates misidentified their target, a mistake that could prove fatal. The USS Ashland, LSD-48, was not a typical cargo ship. It was a Whidbey Island-class dock landing ship of the United States Navy. These are large, formidable vessels designed to support amphibious operations. The Ashland's primary mission was to transport and launch United States Marines and their equipment for missions ashore. With its large flat deck and imposing gray hull, it was built for combat and projecting power. In April 2010, the Ashland was not preparing for an amphibious assault. Instead, it was part of the international naval effort to combat the very piracy that plagued the Gulf of Aden. Its mission was to patrol these dangerous waters and protect civilian maritime traffic. Aboard the Ashland was a crew of highly trained sailors and a contingent of Marines. Unlike the defenseless crews of most merchant ships, the personnel on the Ashland were armed, trained for combat, and constantly vigilant. The ship itself was equipped with advanced radar and communication systems designed to detect threats long before they became visible to the naked eye. It was also armed with powerful defensive weapons, including the 25mm Mk-38 chain gun. This weapon is a rapid-firing cannon capable of delivering devastating firepower against small, fast-moving targets like the skiffs used by pirates. The Ashland was a predator, not prey. The ship was operating as part of Combined Task Force 151, the multinational naval group dedicated to counter-piracy operations in the region. Its daily routine involved patrolling designated sectors, monitoring radio channels for distress calls, and using its surveillance capabilities to keep an eye on suspicious activity. The crew was on high alert, fully aware of the pirate threat that surrounded them. They had trained for scenarios exactly like the one that was about to unfold. For them, a potential pirate encounter was not a terrifying surprise, but a contingency for which they were thoroughly prepared, making them a very hard target. On the morning of April 10, 2010, the USS Ashland was navigating through the Gulf of Aden, about 330 nautical miles off the coast of Djibouti. The sun had not yet risen, and the pre-dawn darkness offered cover for those operating on the seas. For the pirates, this was a prime time to hunt for their next victim. They would be scanning the horizon for the silhouette of a slow-moving commercial vessel, a ship that would yield a massive ransom. It is in this dark, uncertain environment that one of the most significant miscalculations in the history of modern piracy was about to be made by a small group of desperate men. In the early hours, well before sunrise, a small skiff was spotted approaching the USS Ashland. On board the skiff were 6 Somali men. They were equipped with the standard tools of their trade, AK-47 assault rifles, and a determination to capture a valuable prize. From their low vantage point on the water, and in the poor light, the massive silhouette of the Ashland might have been mistaken for a large, slow-moving cargo ship. They likely saw a target of opportunity, a potential multi-million-dollar payday that justified the risk of the attack. They decided to move in, unaware of the true nature of the vessel they were about to engage. As their small, fast boat closed the distance, the pirates made their move. They opened fire on the American warship. Bullets from their assault rifles pinged against the steel hull of the Ashland. This was a standard tactic for pirates. They would use intimidating fire to frighten the crew of a merchant ship into surrendering without a fight. They expected the vessel to slow down, to see a terrified civilian crew, and to prepare for an easy boarding. They could not have been more wrong. Their volley of small arms fire was the equivalent of throwing pebbles at a fortress. The crew of the USS Ashland, already on alert, reacted instantly. Instead of panic, there was a calm, professional, and overwhelming response. The ship's watchstanders had been tracking the skiff's approach and immediately identified the incoming fire as a hostile act. The general quarters alarm was sounded and sailors and marines rushed to their battle stations. The pirates' critical error was not just in choosing the wrong target, but in failing to understand the capability of that target. They had initiated a firefight with a vessel that was designed, equipped, and trained specifically for naval combat. The pirates' attack lasted only a few moments before the reality of their situation became terrifyingly clear. They had not intimidated their target, they had provoked a sleeping giant. The warship they had fired upon was now fully awake and ready to demonstrate its superior power. The small skiff, powered by a single outboard motor and armed with rifles, was now facing the full might of a United States Navy warship. The tables had turned dramatically, and the hunters were about to become the hunted in the dark waters of the Gulf of Aden. The response from the USS Ashland was swift and decisive. As soon as the pirate skiff opened fire, the warship's formidable defenses were brought to bear. The ship's Mk-38 25mm chain gun, a weapon designed to neutralize exactly this kind of threat, locked onto the small boat. The gunner unleashed a torrent of high-explosive rounds, each one capable of tearing through the skiff's thin fiberglass hull. The sound of the cannon was a deafening roar that shattered the morning's quiet. The pirates' rifle fire was completely insignificant compared to the destructive power now aimed directly at them. The pirate skiff was immediately engulfed in flames. The 25mm rounds shredded the small boat, and the fire quickly consumed its structure and fuel. The pirates, who moments before had been on the attack, were now thrown into the water, their vessel destroyed beneath them. The entire engagement was over in minutes. The overwhelming firepower of the Ashland demonstrated the immense gap in capability between a group of pirates and a modern naval warship. There was no contest. It was a brief, one-sided battle that ended with the complete neutralization of the threat. Following the destruction of the skiff, the Ashland crew transitioned from combat to a rescue mission. They launched one of their own rigid-hull inflatable boats to retrieve the 6 pirates from the sea. All 6 men were captured and brought aboard the warship, where they received medical attention for their injuries. They were now prisoners on the very ship they had tried to hijack. Their capture marked the end of their piracy careers and the beginning of a long legal process. They were taken into custody and would eventually be transported to the United States to face justice for their actions. This incident serves as a stark lesson about the risks of modern piracy and the enduring power of naval forces. The pirates' decision to attack a warship, whether through misidentification or sheer desperation, was a fatal miscalculation. It highlights the dangers that desperate individuals are willing to face when legitimate opportunities are scarce. More importantly, the USS Ashland Showdown was a clear message to all pirates operating in the region. While they might prey on defenseless merchant ships, an attack on a naval vessel would be met with swift and overwhelming force. It was a powerful demonstration of why international navies patrol the world's oceans.